Idi Amin, the butcher who turned a nation into a killing field. The name Idi Amin doesn't whisper. It roars. It crashes into history like a tank with no brakes, leaving behind blood, fear, and unanswered questions. This was not just a dictator. This was a man who turned absolute power into absolute madness, and for 8 terrifying years, an entire country lived inside his shadow. Today, on the scars of a global storm fronts, we're cutting through the myths, the jokes and the caricatures to expose the real damage left behind by one of the most brutal rulers of the 20th century. Idi Amin didn't rise through intellect or ideology. He rose through violence. Born in colonial East Africa, Amin found his path through the military, serving under the British during the final years of empire. While the world was still recovering from World War II, learning hard lessons about unchecked power and mass violence, Amin was learning something else entirely. He learned that force works, that fear silences opposition, that a gun can replace legitimacy. By the late 1960s, Uganda was fragile. Political rivalries were intense, institutions were weak, and the military held enormous influence. In 1971, while the sitting president was abroad, Amin struck. No speeches, no debates. Tanks rolled in. Radios announced a new ruler. Just like that, Uganda belonged to Idi Amin. At first, some welcomed him. He smiled, he waved, he promised stability. But that mask fell fast. Amin ruled through terror, not policy. He dismantled checks on his authority and turned the army into his personal weapon. Loyalty wasn't earned, it was enforced. Suspected rivals disappeared. Entire communities were targeted. Estimates vary, but historians believe between 300,000 and 500,000 people were killed during his rule. Teachers, doctors, soldiers, civilians, many were never charged with crimes. They were simply labelled enemies and erased. This wasn't chaos by accident. It was systematic fear. Amin understood that when people are afraid, they stop resisting. And once resistance dies, brutality becomes routine. Amin didn't just want power, he wanted spectacle. He crowned himself with absurd titles, calling himself the conqueror of empires and the uncrowned king of distant lands. He gave rambling speeches. He staged public events designed to show dominance. The world laughed. Uganda suffered. This is where the danger lies. The international community often treated Amin like a clown. But clowns don't run death squads. Clowns don't order mass executions. While headlines mocked his antics, prisons filled and graves multiplied. Behind the theatrics was a deeply paranoid man. He believed enemies were everywhere. His inner circle shrank. Violence escalated. Trust vanished. Amin's damage wasn't only measured in bodies, it was measured in collapse. He expelled tens of thousands of skilled workers, stripping the country of its economic backbone. Businesses failed overnight. Food shortages spread. Infrastructure decayed. International relationships crumbled. Sanctions followed. Uganda became isolated, poor and unstable. The same military that kept Amin in power drained national resources to sustain itself. History teaches this lesson again and again. When leaders rule through fear, nations rot from the inside. World War II taught the world what happens when unchecked authority meets mass violence. Amin ignored those lessons completely. Like the tyrants before him, he believed power justified everything. That brutality could be controlled, that fear would last forever. It never does. By the late 1970s, his regime was unraveling. Internal dissent grew. Military failures mounted. In 1979, after a disastrous conflict abroad, Amin fled. No heroic last stand, no loyal army, just escape. He lived the rest of his life in exile, never facing trial for his crimes. His victims never received justice. Uganda survived, but scars don't vanish just because a dictator falls. Families were broken, trust was shattered, institutions had to be rebuilt from ruins. Trauma passed silently from one generation to the next. So, this is the real legacy of Idi Amin. Not, the jokes, not the headlines, but really the long shadow of fear that outlived him. And this is exactly why stories like this matter. Idi Amin's story isn't ancient history, it's a warning. Power without accountability doesn't correct itself, it escalates. Strong men don't stabilize nations, they consume them. Every era believes it's immune. Every generation thinks it would see the signs earlier. But honestly, history says otherwise. Understanding figures like Amin isn't about obsession with evil. It's about recognizing patterns, the early promises, the use of fear, the silencing of dissent, the slow normalization of brutality. These scars are global, and, they're still forming. On the scars of a global storm fronts, we don't tell history to glorify destruction. We tell it to expose it, to learn from it, to make sure the same mistakes don't wear new faces. If this story hit you, if it made you think, if it reminded you why history matters, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel. Share this video. Keep these lessons alive. Because the past only stays buried when we stop digging.